All right, all right, all right. What's up, Facebook family? We are in the game. We gotta be expecting about 1,000 people to be on. Just kidding. Man, it's been 2 weeks, huh? About 2 weeks since the last time we was here. It's good stuff. We got the crew back. It's always good if you want. Welcome to our weekly or bi-monthly show, The Bishop and I. This is the Bishop. I am the I. And if you want to, for those that may not know who you are, Chaz, you want to let everybody know a little bit about who you is.
Yeah, Chaz Hines again, born and raised, San Diego native.
Whoa.
Southeast.
Yes, sir.
If you think of La Jolla, you're wrong.
I call it Southern La Jolla.
Oh, I heard that.
Southern La Jolla.
Moved to Arizona about 15, 16 years ago, but still have my fingers on the pulse of what's going on back home. So it's an absolute pleasure to come here and be able to discuss local issues and national.
Glad to have you. Me and Chaz went to school together. We talk more about, he has probably cracked more. He talked worse about my mama than anybody in my life, except for Drew. Drew's slowly catching up. I've known Drew about 15 years less than I knew Chaz, so he had a little head start. But you talked real bad about my mama for a long time. So thank you. Just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you, Mom, too.
Endless material.
Man.
So what, Mr. No problem. It's fine.
Big Dog Phil, you want to let the people know who you are, and just for those that may not know.
Drew Phillips. Been in San Diego, living here since '95 when I was in the military. Got out, went to college. Jason was one of the first friends I met when I was in college. So 20 years, bro. What you know about that?
Solid.
21 now.
We out here.
Yeah.
21 years solid.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I just like to be, weigh in and give my opinion on stuff. I'm just glad to be here.
And Drew is one of the very few black contractors that we have in the city of San Diego, general contractor.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I am a licensed general contractor, construction.
And just so you know, this isn't, I don't expect you to bust out any lingerie. Can you put some bass in your voice when you talk tonight, brother? Are we just doing sexy tonight? That's what we're doing?
Man.
Is that what we're doing tonight? Sexy? Come on, man.
I'm just going to talk as regular as possible, man. I'm what's called a baritone.
A baritone?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So was Weezy Jefferson.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I'm Jason. Been in San Diego for a long time. 35 years maybe. And happy to be here, man. We're for those that may be watching on Drew's channel or Chaz's channel. I've been friends with these brothers right here for a long time. Me and Bishop been cool for probably the last 6 years, real tight. I've been really just following Bishop's community lead, and I'm just happy to be here, man. We're happy to come together as much as we can to talk about issues that we feel might be relevant to the cause. We talk about all issues, but we always try to kind of bring them back to how do the issues really affect the Black community. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we have to always nuance it because I know there'll be some that, try to say all kinds of stuff, but we just feel like in the age of people of colorism and all that kind of stuff, issues of Black people don't usually get focused on and targeted and lasered in on. And there's some very unique challenges that happen in the Black neighborhoods because technically we don't, especially in San Diego, there is no Black community. We don't have a Black community. We got Black neighborhoods. And so, so I'm happy to be here. Bishop.
Good to be here. Good to be here.
You talking about my voice somewhere? Nanny McPhee. You talking about my voice? I should throw this coffee cup at you. We're not doing this tonight.
You're a native of San Diego?
Yeah, been here since I was 2 years old.
Wow.
Very nice.
So around since 64.
Mm.
Been here, so this is all I know is San Diego. Born in El Centro, California.
Nice.
But came here 2 years old. My aunt was already here, and my mom came down here because my aunt was here. and been here ever since.
That's right.
Always lived in Crip areas though.
West Coast Crip.
Yeah. Well,
You started at West
when I
Coast.
first came here, it wasn't Crips and Bloods. Like, that was, in the early 60s. Black Panthers coming on the rise, but wasn't there yet. But lived over off of Market in the hood, then moved up into the coast on 29th and Clay Street. And that's where I grew up in that neighborhood over there. Went to school over there. From low, we called it Crockett. Now they call it I forget what they call it now.
Chavez.
No, Rodriguez. They call it
Oh.
Rodriguez now. But it was Davy Crockett, which maybe they should have changed the name. Crockett, then went to Logan, then went to Memorial, then went to San Diego High, went to Hoover with the Kearney, and then dropped out.
That's right.
Yeah, I got kicked out of a couple of schools, suspended school years, and because of the gang stuff, fighting,
I
stealing
saw
cars. all that kind of
saw some photos of the bishop, and he was one of them old school like Tookie Williams looking cats.
stuff.
No, for real, man. You said, hey, so yeah,
Isn't it funny though with that upbringing, like how what that set you up to do? Like you couldn't be who you were
Yeah.
without having
facts.
Going through what you went through.
I wouldn't encourage somebody to be a gang member.
Right. Exactly.
We ain't saying going out there, do
But
it,
I'm just
but if
saying,
you do, or if you have,
The irony of that,
Yeah.
like, I mean, you couldn't have been effective with what you are. So I don't know.
Thank you.
yeah. Well, one of the things, real quick before we start, we always try to have some kind of a shirt or some kind of a something that is kind of a tradition that we started. We've been doing this almost a year now. Almost a year.
Wow.
Doing almost a year now, and trying to have a different shirt. I like to kind of wear shirts that talk about stuff. So you wouldn't be able to see it from here, but it's a shirt that talks about Malcolm, Harriet, Martin Maya, Angelo, and Frederick Douglass. And just to remember some of the folks today was the Martin Luther King Parade. It used to be in Southeast, and it got moved to downtown. There was one last weekend, Martin Luther King Parade that went to Martin Luther King Park over in Skyline or whatever. And so just something to remember. Some of our people, my daughter bought this for me. Shout out to my baby Mara, good looking out. And Bishop got on a cool shirt. Right. He just put his chest out. See, that's what happens when you bench 415. You can just stick your chest out. I gotta stand up.
Yeah, I wore this the other day to the Mayor Faulkner's State of the City address, because one of the things we were trying to do is bring attention to the racial profiling that's been happening in our community. Was passing out factual information about how Black people were stopped 219% higher than white people in the city of San Diego, and we want those stops to stop. And then now that Black people are stopped more, they are arrested more, and they have police force used on them more. The DA's office did a report on police shootings for 25 years. And even though they tried to cover that up from the perspective of saying that more white people shot, but when you do it per population, Black people are shot 7 times more than white people.
Sure.
Even when you look at the pound for pound, even
Yeah.
with the disparaging, and all they want us to do is stop complaining.
Yeah, be quiet. Like, I criticized last year that there was a tape. You know how on Facebook there's a tape that pops up that shows you remembering something you did a year ago, 2 years ago. They showed something a year ago that did a video last year on the Dr. Martin Luther King parade last year. And I didn't go, but I watched the news and I saw the police, Chief Nisland, all waving hands, walking with smiles on their face in the parade. And I was like, they shouldn't be allowed in the parade. They shouldn't be allowed to march. Those are oppressors. And, and what Martin Luther King stood for, and I gave some quotes, he spoke out against police brutality, right? And so the police wouldn't like him, like they don't like some of us who speak out against their brutality. But now they want to walk in his march. But he spoke out against what they did.
Sure.
And so it's a scandal. It's a shame to what happens and how we. And I posted a video today with Martin Luther King. One of the things he said is that we shouldn't become complacent, with the racial discrimination that is still happening, because you made a few improvements. The Civil Rights Bill was signed, different things like that. He wasn't satisfied. He said, we still have a long, long way to go. And even today, over 50 years later, about 50 years later, we still have a long, long way to go, regardless of the strides that you made. We still have these oppressors out there that want to oppress us, and the mayor and I was there at the city council address, and he's part of that oppression. Now I see why the police are so oppressive, because of him. It's coming down from him, and that's why he hasn't been responding to anything. It's a shame, and so I'm just kind of like tired of all these politicians who you support and you get out there and tell people to vote for and things like that. And then when they get in office, they forget about what they said they was going to do and push into real issues and things like that. So, you know, if you see me going a different way with some of these politicians, it's because, you know, the status quo won't do anymore, you know, and that's part of the problem that we have. People straight up afraid to speak out against police brutality and against there's been these 3 or 4 reports that have come out of doing an audit on the AB 953 report on traffic stops. And all of them shown that there's a great disparity in how Black people are stopped. And none of these Black politicians, except Shirley Weber, have spoken out, unless I haven't seen it. If I missed it, show me where I missed it at,
Now,
because I want to see that.
you talking about as far as Councilmember Montgomery did
When?
about police brutality? That's all she
No, I'm talking about since the reports came out. I'm talking about since the reports came out.
And that's national.
Campaign
That's
Zero and
national.
all, yeah.
Because they're doing these
I'm talking
reports
since the
in
reports come out.
Phoenix. They're running all these, and I'm wondering, why are they doing this? I don't see where it's politically expedient, but I see them running these reports about police shootings and then looking at the different data as far as race and the police stops. And then when the data comes out, I don't hear any. By that time, maybe the politician that was in office is already gone. Nobody ever addresses the fact that, like you said, even though they'll say, well, way more white people were killed by police. Well, there's 125 million white folks, or 175 million white folks in America versus 47 million Black folks. So I would imagine, and they'll also look at the fact that when you look at the white folks that they're killed, I don't think that white people think it's a problem, because I think most of us would agree that probably the large percentage of them have guns, knives, something. When you look at the amount of Black folks that are killed, walking down the street, running from the police. So nobody ever addresses it. And I don't know if they just do the report to quail, you know, some of our tension at the point.
Yeah.
And then in the end, they just figure, no, shut up.
Well,
They always do.
Well, I want to. I think that's a good kind of jump off point too. Everybody that's on, those of you who are still on, what's up? Hey, what's up, Charmaine? What's happening?
I'm sorry, I had one more thing on that.
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
Of course not.
And I don't want to be disrespectful to Martin Luther King's birthday, or the way we honor him. But I thought or don't.
Exactly.
You know, we keep it real. Hey, we keep it real, bro. So just whatever you're gonna say, you're gonna say.
I'm gonna
say
say some
it.
stuff here
Say
that,
it.
you know, I've said this before. I don't remember before. I've said this before. You know how I think. I don't care. I don't care what people think. I literally think when you start talking about your shirt, there are 3 people in that shirt that would never be honored nationally. And I would even more say that Martin Luther King was commandeered by white people at large as pacifiers for Black people. We all know about the nonviolence. Even then, even Malcolm X, like there's that famous tug of war between them. Even then, when he said, "Turn the other cheek," it was they tried to make Martin Luther King look like a punk, a sucker, and then use him to quiet and derail Black folks' efforts to defend themselves, defend their honor, defend themselves physically. This holiday, I feel, has been commandeered by white folks, and literally it is every year, the whole Black History Month, even it is commandeered for us to remember, because you never hear them talk about anybody else. We love the memory of Martin Luther King and his nonviolent, almost making him seem like a lay down kind of dude. He wasn't no lay down kind of dude. He was anything but a lay down kind of dude. So I really think it's pointing like when you start talking about that, nobody on that shirt, Ronnie, but him would be honored. And he's not really being honored. His legacy has been changed, and it's a conformist-like legacy they're trying to make. And then you even talk about him. Well, he loved everybody. He wasn't fighting for everybody.
That's right.
He wasn't fighting. So white
In
folks,
his day,
white
it
folks
wasn't
not
no
saying
people, it
that.
wasn't no people of color,
Right.
minorities.
Right.
No, it was Negroes.
Any white folks watching, stop saying it.
Yeah.
Because that's not, he wasn't fighting for you.
You want to know something inconvenient about Martin Luther King?
What's that?
Republican.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's not fair. That's not fair because that was the point where that changed. The Republican Party of today
Not to say.
is
That
the
was-
Democratic Party of
Yeah,
so
yeah.
come on.
That was
And they try to make him a communist too, which was like tag phrase too. So come on.
right, but if you think about it, as if you look at Martin Luther King all his work and all his effort. I saw in forum somewhere that he is, or he would go down in history as the only Republican civil rights activist ever.
That's true.
Ain't that crazy?
That's true. But there's an example of what I'm saying. Every black person was a Republican then, right? The parties flopped,
Right.
and they flopped under Kennedy, and we know why they flopped. So that's like the lamest. You can only use that
I
on
want
people that are ignorant.
I want to say that they switched sides. Like, yeah,
It was
Historically,
it
black
was
folks were
a,
Republicans.
it was a gradual
It
switch.
started in the 30s and 40s when it really started.
Black people down south watch Fox News right now. I mean, I'm not.
But the civil rights did
I mean,
change
listen for
things,
it did.
change things around.
Well, because if you think about it, you know, historically, and what's crazy is I know so much about it, and to me it's useless information. But you know, as black folks had the right to vote, right?
Mhm.
50s, you know, 40s and 50s, as they was doing their whole, you know, going through all these hoops to get their vote, you know, at least or the right to vote.
Mhm.
The people in power saw that the black vote was a pretty powerful thing to have. So how are you gonna, you know, attract their vote to, you know, get support for your political party? How are you gonna get the black vote to add into or contribute to your political base? So that they had to kind of pander to the demands of black folks. And what's crazy is you said something earlier about them, you know, talking about all these stats and all this other stuff. The only time they ever really talk about race issues is during election
During
years.
election years, of course.
So every 4 years or 2, depending on, you know, what office is open. But the only time they really talk about it is when someone's vying for election. But what progress has really been done? I mean, on the grand scheme, like systematically,
None.
have they changed policies? No, because even now, and I'm a huge, like, if there's one thing that I want to be remembered for, is that I'm against police brutality. Like, police ain't got no business beating up on civilians.
That's
I
right.
mean, no business
That's
doing
right.
it. I don't care if they was resisting. I don't care if they was whatever. You ain't got, somebody's a professional in this
Mhm.
equation. You got to be professional. I'm under duress. I don't care. I just don't believe in that. You know, police
If
brutality.
we believe in the idea of what police are supposed to be.
They're public servants.
But the
They're
whole
supposed to be.
idea began as slave catchers, as runaway slave catchers.
That's right.
So I'm just saying, if you're trying to sell us the
Slave
idea of
owners,
police,
yeah.
but under some different auspice,
Right.
but let's be for real. That's not what police were. There were no police department.
Right.
Before slave catchers, before
And guess
there was no
who
police
the
department
police
during
was
that
back then in the 1800s?
KK, well,
They're
racists
Irish.
and all that.
time. Irish, you're
They're Irish.
That's why they had
Why
paddy
you
wagons
think
and all that.
why you think that, you know?
The police department in New York is 90%, probably 80% Irish.
Irish,
Same with the firefighters and all that.
Hey, what was Abraham Lincoln? Wasn't he Republican?
Mhm.
So that would explain why black people were
But they said,
Republicans.
but they said,
And he was an abolitionist.
but they
That's
said
one of the things.
And a slave owner.
Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah. And a slave owner.
I read
No.
somewhere that Abraham Lincoln was 1/8 black.
It's
I heard that.
probable.
I
It's
heard
probable.
that.
He did look like he had a Jerry curl. He
He
did look like he had a
Well,
Right,
yeah, but you know what though? One thing about Abraham Lincoln, what most people don't talk about is Abraham Lincoln didn't free the slaves for the sake of the slaves.
He did it to save the Union.
He did.
He was so against even.
So
the
let
notion.
me
Right.
ask. So you say that, and then, so my question would be: anything that we see that is changed for the sake of black people, what changes have been made that were made because of they're morally incorrect? What changes have ever been made for black people that weren't made because it was going to cost you something?
They're not.
And
you
that-
don't do that.
You see what I'm
Who
saying?
does that in power?
Well,
Nobody.
The only
Nobody.
policies that I see now is they make inclusion a rule.
Of course,
It is now a law.
and that's not inclusion.
Right.
You can't.
What is inclusion?
Now, when you
Give me the definition of inclusion.
Okay. So if you want to qualify for these grants and tax breaks, the demographics of your, you know, staff have to reflect X, Y, and Z.
so
Affirmative. That's like a reverse affirmative
well,
action.
inclusion is theoretically is just me allowing you to be a part of it. You can come and be a part of it. That's what being inclusive is. But when you start
If
talking
you
about
qualify.
here's the difference. Yes, here's the difference though. There's a difference between equity and inclusion, right? Inclusion is just, hey, you can come to the party.
We ain't gonna like you. We ain't gonna talk
Yeah,
to you. We
yeah.
don't like you.
You're welcome to come in. Pay your $10 and come in. But equity is where we say we're gonna play music that you like. Like we're gonna actually play things that you like. Like we're gonna actually include. So it's more than just you can come in as we're gonna. So equity, but you can't force. If you have to force equity, and that's the problem with like government. And this is one of the, like, to me, the sticky points about when you try to make government be like the morality police of people is you can't force somebody to change their heart. Racism and stuff like that is a condition of the heart. Like all of the issues that we face in our life, I believe that with all my heart, dude, whatever comes out of your mouth is what's in your heart. Like it is whatever.
Which is why it took a bus boycott. Which is why it took hitting pocketbooks in order to make quote unquote change.
Yeah,
but
but
they didn't just do it because we love them.
Absolutely, but your heart won't. If your heart's not changed, then all it just morphs into something different.
Else.
Because yes,
Then they got to hide it.
you're included on the bus, but how many people after the bus boycotts got lynched and nobody went to jail? How many people
Thousands.
get shot today and nobody goes to jail?
Thousands.
It don't matter. Your heart's not changed. It's just that, and just like when we had black businesses and did all that kind of stuff, and as soon as we said, hey, let's all join our money together and start spending our money at everybody's stores, then all the black businesses went down right.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, like they say, now people act like white people's ice is colder than black people's ice. So
Even black folks act like
yes, and that's what I'm talking about. And so that leads me to something else I wanted to throw out there. I posted some stuff about black leaders, and I just think it's shameful that in some cases here, and not in all cases, but in some cases where we see these black organizations that don't support black candidates. And I think that's crazy. Like, I just think it's insane. And
and they're not going to win in their mind. So why would you throw money behind them? It's crazy, but they're not going to win. But you're not.
let me make my point. Let me make my point. Because my little sister one of my little sisters pointed out, I think it's ignorant I think she didn't say, it might have been ignorant, she said, but it was something ignorant or irresponsible, something like that, if we don't put the right person in, the person that's right for it. And one of the things that I posted on my Facebook after that was, but when are we ever going to have, when do we really ever have candidates that are right for the position? Like black people are for the most part, are always going to be less experienced, are not going to be exposed the same way. They're not going to get the same kind of support as other people. And so my thing is like, what is the,
why is a white man in a suit somehow suited?
And we never check the credentials of somebody else and see the harm that's been happening. My thing is, as black organizations, what seems like it would make sense is that, say if I knew right now that, so you've got a contractor's license and if I have access to business, whatever, I would feel indebted. I would feel like it's my responsibility if I'm an older contractor, you know what I'm saying? I would feel like it's my responsibility to bring you around and give you the game and take you under my wing and mentor you and get you in a position to do the things that you're supposed to do. But we don't do that. It would be wrong for me to disregard you because you don't have experience and bring another contractor of another ethnicity up to get the money that has all the resources. And that's what I think is unfair. We can't say on one hand that we don't have qualified candidates, but then we bring these people into the churches knowing that they're going to lie. We bring them into all of our sacred spaces or whatever, and we allow them to lie to the people, to say that they're going to do X, Y, and Z, and only 2 or 3 of the people actually get the benefit of this person being elected. And I think at some point, man, we have to start holding these organizations accountable for not believing in and not mentoring and not thinking about black candidates. What do y'all think about that?
But I guess I have some questions in regards to that, as far as did that black organization have a fair process? And did they have a criteria that the candidate had to meet? Because here's my thing with that, and because I'm dealing with some stuff right now myself when it comes to black candidates, is just because you're black, I'm not going to vote for you.
Absolutely not.
Just because you're black, I'm not going to endorse you and support you, right?
Of course.
And you can be whatever. It don't mean you have to be this conservative black conservative Republican that's talking crazy. But I'm talking about even folks that we claim that are for us and down with us. Because one of the things that I have found is that when you talk about black candidates, many times all they're doing is being controlled and puppets of the white liberals. And I'm not down with that either.
Right. Can you dig into that a little bit?
But that's the
Yes, I
story.
can.
What do you mean by that?
Yes, I can. I use for an example, what we went through, when we were trying to do that little prayer visual thing. And how who was behind that. And those folks, there's a lot of people in the room, black, voted in favor of them, not realizing what we're going through because they're following that liberal viewpoint,
And
right?
just real, here's
You know where I'm going. You know where I'm going.
We spent about 6 hours to get 6 to 8 hours discussing putting this event together. It was just us, and it was me, Bishop, and 2, sometimes 3, sometimes 4 other brothers that was getting together. What's up, Tom? Talking about putting together this event. All of a sudden, out the blue, a white lady showed up to our event one day, to our meeting, and about putting this event on. She was like, "So what do you guys got going on?" And we told her this is kind of what we want to do. She was like, and she started questioning a bunch of stuff, and then she was acting like she was like cool with it, like okay, well that's fine, we can, that's no big deal. Then all of a sudden, like the next day, we got it from the host organization that we had this committee under, and they were like, "Oh, you guys got to change what you're." We're like, "Man, why? You knew what we was doing the whole time. We was doing this the whole time. And, oh yeah, man!" And all of a sudden, this lady comes in and got a problem with it, and y'all folded.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, stop it, bro. So I was like, I'm out of there anyway. I'm off the committee. I don't even want to be a part
But
of
I'm
it.
just using that example because that's an example of how I believe that, like, you know, because when it came to a vote to decide on which way you're gonna go, my way or this woman's way, most people voted that woman's way.
Right.
And some of the people in the room that voted that woman's way, you know, are people who are black and want to run for office and stuff. So my thing is, it's like when I see that, it's not that I'm gonna be honest on you on 2 things. You know, it's not that you went against me on a personal level, but it's more so the overall principle of what I'm looking at, why you went against me.
Right.
And yes, on another level, say number 2, there is a self-interest involved in it, right? I can't fight for anybody else's interest if I can't fight for my own interests and stand up for my own interests, right? And push my own interests and make sure that those issues get pushed for. So I have an issue with that. So my thing is like, and it really opened my eyes to some things about black people, and that especially when they're running for office, they try to talk and think and act like the way white people want them to, and they push their agenda, their issues through. You know, we saw a good example of that with Obama. And so, and then when they get in office, there's really, you know, maybe some executive orders are done and things like that. Because I'm not going to criticize Obama completely, because I do appreciate the consent decrees that they was putting on the police departments. They had quite a few of those on there. They were trying to do that from that perspective. He did make an executive order on ban the box and things like that, because he couldn't get some of those issues pushed through because Republicans control Congress. But on the other end, one time they had both Democrat and Democrat Senate and Congress, and him as president, but yet everybody would say, "Oh, well, you know, you got to wait for the second term. He got to get elected again." Then when he got elected again, nothing still happened, regardless of who you want to say was in control of that. So my thing is that when I'm looking at a black candidate, whether it's a black organization that's going to support it or myself, I'm looking at, are you pushing my issues? You know what I mean? The issues that are dear and important to me, as far as when you talk about the black agenda and what we want and what we want to see done. That's number 1. But then number 2, I think, you know, when we talk about black candidates, at least from what I'm saying, what I'm viewing, there's some of them I love, and I'm like, hey, I support you, but you got to run a competent campaign. And if you don't, you're going to lose. Simple as that. And there's some people that's not going to invest their money, time, and resources into that when they know that you're not running a competent campaign to win. You know, nobody wants to just support somebody, and they're not even trying to run the campaign a way to win. And I think that's important.
I think we need to quantify this.
Mm.
I disagree with you fundamentally on some of it, but I think we need to quantify it. I think you might agree, considering your politics knowledge. There were some assertions made during the Obama years that black people voted for Obama just because he was black. A lot of people voted for him, a lot of white folks did. I think we can all agree that he was elected because a lot of people voted for him just because he was black. I don't think that we have the wherewithal as black people to act the same way white folks do. I think we should vote for somebody just because they're black. Now, we're not so fundamentally flawed that, for instance, the Republicans would put a black candidate and we would vote for that. Like we're not stupid enough to just say we're going to vote for any.
Look what happened to her. Look what happened to Hurricane.
So, but
I'm on there singing and everything.
that is so crazy.
Yeah.
But you have to think about it like this: if in your given party,
Hey, hold on. What's up, Dr. G? How you doing, man? Sorry about that. I had to give a shout out. This brother got an incredible podcast, man, and I listen to it all the time. Good to see you, man. He does a lot of black issues. He's in
we need to
Wisconsin.
get with.
Yeah, he's a strong brother. Appreciate you, man. Love you, Doc. Sorry about that.
Ultimately, it's what got Barack Obama elected. He did some good things you think are good, things you think are bad. If within the given party there's nothing but white candidates.
Right.
We've got historic nothing but white presidents, senators,
Right.
congressmen. How much worse off can we be if he's in our party and we don't know anything about him and we vote for him? Because what do we know? Like the assumption, for instance, that Obama is this and
socialist country.
you know what I'm saying? Like
Take your
we can't make the
guns.
distinction.
We're gonna get all the gays married.
You know what I'm saying? So ultimately,
Oh,
I think that we do owe it to ourselves to just, even if we vote for somebody who's black and in the end they were just a political pawn for white folks, just the fact that somebody black was there when you look years later, I don't think we can operate on those common sense, logical lines if they're within our party. Because they couldn't be any worse than a white candidate doing the same thing.
Yeah, but let me just respond because he disagreed with me. There's one thing I want to bring out is that I don't think Obama won because of black. I think that was a part of it, in the sense, especially a lot of black people voted for him because he was black. But I think also you got to remember the situation. I believe that white folks both voted their pocket. I believe because we were in an economic downward spiral, you know, and they saw this man with a brilliant mind and come out of Harvard had some ideals of how to really get in there and deal with Wall Street and all that. And I believe that that's what people were looking at because he beat out Hillary. You know, that's how he won. But I do believe that black people did vote for him because he is black and so on. And I think that when we talked, because a couple weeks ago, we talked about accountability. And I don't think that we should just vote for a person because they're black. There has to be some sense of accountability because otherwise we become just like everybody else. And I'll switch it around, turn it around a little bit, right? Because there are some white people that we vote for that don't do what we need to do. But then they say we'd rather have a Democrat than a Republican. I'm like, no, if they ain't doing what they want to do, then I might go over here just to send a message and vote for this conservative Republican to show you that I'm not just going to vote for you just because you're a Democrat or a liberal.
How about why don't we do this? I think in a lot of ways we missed the mark in general. There was a term that was brought up last year, and it's one of the things that they was a part of the impeachment process for Trump, and it was quid pro quo.
Mhm.
And one of the things that, and this is the one thing, with Dr. Claude Anderson or whatever, Powernomics, which we need to get that book going or whatever. But Dr. Anderson said we need to. He gave an example when he was over education in Detroit.
Mhm.
In Florida. I think it was a whole state of Florida. He was over all education from kindergarten all the way to post secondary. And one of the things he talked about is that we need to start doing quid pro quo like things when we talk to politics, when we talk to politicians. We need to be able to say, I was talking to a candidate the other day. I was like, the folks that I deal with or whatever in my circle, we will walk for you. We'll hand out stuff, but we need to get commitments for you that if you get that spot, that you're going to remember us and that you're going to allow some of those resources to fund some of the things that we do. And why do we do that? Because everybody does that. And the problem is that we have to do it with the right motives.
Right.
And the problem is we can sit back all we want. And this is one of the problems that we have in our community. We the only ones that play the moral game. We got to do what's right. Because that's
kind of what I'm saying.
I understand. Now listen, I understand we don't want to sell our souls, but we the only ones that want to we got to play by the rules. And it's like, well, that's cool. Then let's wait another 100 years then. So what I'm saying is we have to learn to use that politic. And that's what, if we get, I don't care how small the black community is. Mm-hmm. If we can take 60,000 votes, means something to a candidate.
Right.
There's a candidate that it means 60,000 votes means something. So we can say, listen, you ain't got to go in and be like, we all want Mercedes-Benzes when that's stupid. That nobody's thinking like that, but we have to start thinking about policies and things that we're trying to get. Mm-hmm. You know why there's not a lot of thriving black businesses in San Diego? Because we don't have that expectation for politicians. And so sorry to keep touching my foot. One of the things that happened there was a forum this weekend that Black San Diego, Sharif from Black San Diego asked, why would they got over 25,000 people that are a part of the Black San Diego group. Why would a bunch of black business owners or why would a group of black people vote for you? Why would they do that? Mm-hmm. Why would they vote for you? In other words, what are you going to give to the people that we have in our group? And if we can mobilize just for them, the 25,000 people that belong to that group, if we can mobilize those folks to give you the vote, what are we going to get in return? And that's what we need to sit on. Mm-hmm. And if that doesn't happen, if we do that, then we're going to sit home and like Killer Mike said, we're going to sit home and eat greens and black eyed peas, and none of us gonna vote then if we, you know what I mean? And so we need to do that. Let me catch this question with something. There was a sentiment that Obama's blackness caused him. This is from Dr. G. Caused him to be sympathetic to our issues and concerns. It was more than melanin. Many believed he got us right, the same way whites think their candidates got them. And you know what? And so there's two things that I don't know how you feel about this, Dr. G. I know how you feel about it because we've talked about it several times, and I'm not sure that Chaz and Drew and I have talked about it before, but I think that was one of the things that was a fear that caused a fear in a lot of white candidates and a lot of white citizens. Like, oh man, if this black dude gets in, like he's gonna, paint the, all of a sudden it's gonna be a roller skating rink in the bottom of the White House. And, you know what I mean? All of a sudden,
Let's go. Fried chicken. They're gonna be cooking fried chicken every Wednesday night.
But they think
But isn't that funny how they think?
I'm telling
What do we
you,
do in the last 200 years?
Thank you.
I find it so funny that white folks will say, I don't know, people don't be for us. Well, welcome to our world.
But here's what happened. And see, and this is what I'm talking about. The problem is that I don't believe Obama had the black community. Obama didn't get us. We didn't get nothing from Obama when he got in office. We didn't get nothing from him. He didn't change anything for black people in general.
Not specifically for us. We always benefit from every other minority group or underprivileged group.
But I'm saying
nothing was done specifically.
Right. He said ribs grilling in the Rose Garden. That's what they was thinking. They was like, oh, when is the family cookout? And is Michelle going to be cooking green? Not water cornbread.
We gotta order a presidential smoke. You know what I'm saying?
But I think,
Bro, the jokes kept coming.
Yeah.
But
Bro,
the reality is this though, and this is what we have. I'm telling you, we got nothing from Obama's presidency. Black community got nothing. There's nothing. And guess what? And the reality is, just optics of I can be whatever I want to be. You're not going to ever be president. You know what I'm saying? Little brother, we had our black president. It's over. That's over. Yeah, it's over. We've only had 45 presidents, really 44, because I don't know who we got now, what we got now. But we've had 45 people that have occupied the office of president since we've been a country. Right? Since we've had presidents, there's no way.
It's not.
You're never going to happen. Just like if you look at
you can't crush their dreams.
Yes, you can. You have to do that. Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
No,
and if your baby can't sing, don't have them singing in church. Don't do that.
So Drew says don't ever tell your black kid.
Yes, you
Don't do
should.
that.
So what you tell your black kid is that you need to prepare for the what ifs. Just like getting in like my daughter wants to be the president.
Right.
My daughter wants to be the president.
What's her backup plan?
She got a backup plan. That's why she's going to study
Good.
economics,
Good.
law.
Figure it out.
Yeah, my daughter, she's not just
a
going to.
backup plan.
But that's what I'm saying. There's nothing wrong with doing it. But my point is that no, there's not. Listen, I'm not.
So why tell the kid that they can't go out? And
That's
do
not what I'm
something crazy?
talking about. You can't. There's a chance for you to do something crazy. I'm just saying we have to be realistic, just like with the NFL. You know how many people make it to the NFL every year, and you know how many college players
I
there
told my
are.
son when he was 9, I said you're never gonna be in the league.
I'm just telling you. No. Listen. I'm just saying, dude. 1% of people that go to college end up in the league, bro. I'm just telling you, stop it. So we have to start looking and being more realistic about what is necessary, right? So yes, shoot for the stars. There's no question about it. You should shoot for the stars. But all I'm saying is, if it don't happen, don't get all messed up. It's just not realistic when you look statistically. There's millions of people in the world. And there's people whose kids know other congressmen and senators and people like that so I'm just saying we have to be realistic. Obama didn't do nothing for the black community at all. He didn't do anything for the black community except for optics, which that doesn't do anything. And we have to stop. We have to stop parading these white candidates around in the black community and allowing them to come to our churches and stuff like that and make all these promises and act and you just started talking about this stuff right now. And some of these candidates need coaches. You need GPS and you need a coach. You need a GPS to get you somewhere in our community because you don't know nothing about the community because you ain't never been here before. You never cared about the community. And then 2, you need somebody to teach you about our issues because you've never cared about them before. You never have. And so we have to stop doing that. And so instead of us just coming and getting a white politician who comes in and says, hey, I've always loved you people, blah, blah, blah. And we say, well, get in my car and I'll take you on to the community, introduce you to all the pastors and all that. Stop it. We need to say no, dude. Come on. What we need to say is all of y'all can come to us. We want every one of y'all to come and sit right in front of us or whatever. And we have a group of elders in our community that like have got all the issues that people want, and they know the community well. And they sit in front of a group of 20 elders or 1,000 people from the community, however they want to do it, and let these folks say, hey, none of these folks here are going to vote for you. None of them are going to vote for you unless you make some commitments. We need some stuff on paper. We need you to make some commitments to some things that you're going to do for us.
Yeah.
You know why they're talking about police brutality right now? Guess where they talk about police brutality? South of the 8, and they only say it like none of them said nothing before, and none of them say, and they're not
Well,
going to say nothing.
did they say anything in the debate, the mayor debate on Thursday?
No.
Did you make it to it? I know Tasha probably did, but
Yeah, Tasha, you know Tasha said
did
something.
any of the other candidates say anything?
Well, they gonna have to. If somebody brings it up, they're gonna say we need to address the disparities. They talk in those particular terms. So yes, But see, white folks don't get scared when you start saying if there's injustice, we want to deal with it. Nobody's gonna get mad at you because you talk. But when you say we don't need no more studies. We need folks that are. Why are you gonna study? What do we need another study for? So all I'm saying, man, is that
Or survey, you know. That's what I'm like.
we need to stop that. We need to stop that. We need to start saying this is what we want you to do.
Exactly.
For us, and if you don't, we ain't gonna vote for you. That's all there is to it. And we
Everything
just
else
don't
is
do that.
Sounds
delay.
Why after all these years? It sounds so
Poor leadership.
That's exactly what it comes
Thank
down
you.
to. That's
Thank
all I
you.
wanted to say. When we talk about accountability, right?
Yeah.
What people do is
You're from Chicago, so just talk slow.
what people do is a reflection of what they see. Right?
Yeah.
Right. So if the leadership was better or more qualified, well, let's just say better or more competent, then that's going to reflect in the, I don't want to say constituency, but in a particular,
that
you know,
works. In the
group of
community.
people,
In the community.
in the community.
local leadership, national leadership.
Local. You know why? Because local is just a slice of national, right? So if local leadership was better, that's going to equate to, you take that and you multiply it times, 100,000, that's just going to equate to a whole group, a whole community being better. Think about it. Black leadership has been sketchy the last 50 years.
Yeah.
Sketchy.
So what is Jesse Jackson doing? What is Jesse and Al Sharpton? What are they doing when it comes to like
you gotta remember,
presidential candidates? and all that?
but those guys are just, I don't want to say like icons. They're just figureheads. They don't reflect the normal. What was like? You think Jesse Jackson has been racially profiled?
No.
Thank you. Do you think he's worried about getting pulled over by the police when he's driving somewhere where you don't see a lot of black folks? No. He probably don't even go to the black community no more. Why? He probably just, once you hit a certain, height,
Socioeconomic status.
it's a wrap.
That's
But-
scary because then we could probably never have it.
But you have to remember though,
because they're always going to succeed.
but you have to remember though, for black folks, unless you were born into money, which is super rare for us, you have to start off somewhere and really work your way up. But then what do we do once we make money?
OJ.
Move out. That's it, man. I get it.
Right.
I get it.
So why can't we have a black leader then? Because at some point they're going to secede from us.
The biggest thing that I would like to add is that if we reinvested back into our community, or what I like to say, buy back the block, or re-gentrification, not re-gentrification. Literally, you go and do what you do, like me, military, college, professional, all this other stuff. I'm going to go back to where I'm from and buy up everything that's inexpensive and own it. Because, if you can, economic power and all that comes from owning stuff.
Right.
Not renting, but owning.
Right.
Like the real conversation we got to have is how come ownership isn't a higher priority on the list for us as black folks, right? I mean, yeah, we could talk about all these injustices and all this other stuff. But once you own stuff, you become an owner, that changes your mindset. Period. Once you have assets, that changes everything. So I think the real responsibility that we have as capable black folks is that not only do we need to kind of reset the way we think, but we also got to share that with people who don't think that way and let them know, like, folks, listen. You got to put yourself in a position to own something, because I think we'll be the best generation to really help with the generational wealth that black folks just have been lacking since slavery, since the end of slavery.
And that's the thing. It's like when you start talking about, I had an ADD moment.
Go for it.
You said my glasses look like I got them in the Navy.
Well,
I just saw that. So,
you got on the birth control glasses.
so what I was thinking about.
He went into Liz Crackers and was like, I can't see, fam. What you want? I want something that's gonna make me unattractive. Say no more. I got you. This is
So what I was thinking about,
birth control 2020.
but
That's what you got on right now.
so
Must be married. So you got on way too much cologne. You had horrible glasses. You ain't got to compete no more.
Only a wife could love you.
man, I hate both of y'all. So so one of the things though I think is important to talk about, bro. And you brought this up about ownership, man. And like one of the things I really that's funny. We was just talking about this the other day, man. Super proud of Chaz. Chaz is a homeowner, a young brother, and owns his home. And I think the reality though is that for many of us, we don't have the ability to purchase. And when you look at the wage gap and the disparity in wages, it ain't as simple. It's difficult. It's difficult.
I disagree.
If you look at the median income for the average black person in America,
It's way less.
It's about $1,100.
I disagree. We don't have that luxury. You look at black folks working, over 85% of us work for the government. The money's there. Here's how we know. They've been driving Nissan Maximas, Jeep Cherokees, got Nikes on their feet, Nikes on their shorts, Nikes on their shirt. They got all kind of just shiftless, valueless stuff. It takes
It's permanent.
it takes prioritization. I don't have a closet full of Jordans. I
do.
Well, you one of the rich ones, but I don't have a closet full of Jordans or a bunch of brand new cars. I decided I wanted to buy a house. And I'm not even saying I sacrificed. I was never due a closet full of Jordans. I'm just saying we can't say the money's in there. The money's there. If you want it to be, it's
If you
there.
really change the way you spent your money.
And look at our parents. We can't say that where we are now. My father was born in 1944 in Birmingham, Alabama. If he talked like that, my father wouldn't have made it out of Birmingham.
Times are so one of the things I want to just so we don't go off on that thing, I want you all to read the things that we get wrong about closing the racial wealth gap. It's a study done by Sandy Darity and some others from Duke. It's on Duke University's website.
I can tell you how to do that.
I want y'all to read it first, though, and then we'll have that discussion.
We talked about
We'll have
that.
that discussion. But I want you to look at some of the facts, though, coming from statistics.
What if 5% more though? Let's just say it was 5%.
That's fine. 2%.
The bottom line, I think.
I'm not saying it's impossible because I'm a homeowner. I mean, I'm a homeowner. I'm not saying
Were
it's
your
not
parents?
impossible. My mother was a homeowner. My father was.
And that's the point I'm making. It needs to be as many as possible because statistically, homeowners are going to birth homeowners. If it took 50 years, it would change the game. But the problem is we're not willing to even push the ones that can, and we're so willing to start. And I'm not trying to say that you're deferring to that.
I get it.
But the bottom, we don't have that luxury, and we need to look 50 years, 75 years into the future and say, because the politics, I'm thinking about what you guys are talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Politics might be something that's useless to us. Maybe at the end of the day, we're just so few in number, and we don't have generational wealth. So maybe we will never get representation with politicians, black or white or Asian or anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe what you're saying is more of a viable way for us to end up, in the future being more of a viable group, which is we have ownership. We do have a black community. Because we're so splintered here, we're so distrustful that we can't get together on the same thing.
Yeah, think about that. How do you become distrustful as a group? Years and generations of people, screwing you over,
Yeah.
or double crossing you, or leaving you hanging. So you become just super skeptical. I get it, but again, ownness or accountability should still be on your shoulders to do what you need to do. Whether historically politics has never catered to black folks, you still gotta live your life and do what's best for you and for your kids and your grandkids, or your legacy. You have to. And to do anything outside of that, to me, is just woefully irresponsible. For two reasons. A, you gotta look back at your life and say, what have I done for those that's gonna come behind me? I mean, it's just a real question you gotta ask yourself, once you get in a position to kind of think like that. And then secondly, not only that, did I set my kids up so they don't have to struggle as hard as I did. I mean, I come from parents who had high school education. I graduated college. You was there.
Then I set my cousins up That's look at Asians. Look how Asians.
That's
Again,
community. That's
Why
community.
are we doing that?
But that's community.
You say
We
that
used
the book
to.
says why we can't do it. Okay, well let's say this. Let's say me.
I didn't
Me
say
and my
my
wife-
wife. I didn't say.
What are we
there's
willing to do?
myths.
What are we willing
There's
to do?
myths. And there's things that black people actually don't. Black people aren't as frivolous as people say that they are. That's a myth as well. Black people actually spend more on their kids going to college than white people do, and they sacrifice more for.
And the funny thing is that that's useless. The funny thing is the practice that we're doing is semi-useless.
And so people can say that, but what we have to look at though is that so we talk about why do we do X, Y, and Z? Well, a lot of it is because that's what we've been taught to do. Like for me, I was taught, and the philosophy when I purchased my home 20 years ago, where we sit right now. I bought my home 20
Who
years
else you
ago.
moved in here?
You did.
Now it's the Shameless Plug. We moved.
Hey, it was me and Drew.
couches and
Me and Drew moved this
Eight
whole house.
washers
I
and
mean, we
dryers.
had everything every week, everything.
Every-
You was there for all of it.
all of them.
But what I'm saying though is that I was under the impression that when you get your money, you're supposed to leave the hood. That was like what everybody did. Nobody ever told me like you should stay there. I never in my life even thought that. And by the time I was like, man, that was stupid. And I actually owned 2 homes in Southeast or whatever. One on our family did. One on Hammershaw and one on Lynette Street or whatever, right off of Imperial. And just because of my ignorance or whatever, I got rid of them because I just didn't know. I was ignorant. And so that's the reason, that's a lot of the reason why we don't get the things that we would have a lot more options to do different things. And I believe in group economics, and we talk about this a lot. We've talked about these things, and we do need to be more trusting. But there's reasons, there's systems that have been set up to make us not want to trust one another. And we have to, I'm not making excuses, right? But we have to look at the things that are true. And people go, oh, I'm not like that. Okay, well, if you're walking down the street and you see a group of white dudes standing outside, do you walk across the street in fear, or do you walk by and say, how you doing? But if you go past a group of black people and you know what I'm saying, do you walk right by? And I'm not saying everybody reacts the same way.
You talking about the program? That's programming.
I'm just talking about, but there are things that we do subconsciously that we don't know, that we don't even think about. And so, yes, and I think this is a good segue into the second thing we're going to talk about. And we might not even get to the first thing, but it's about accountability in the black community, because I think that that's something that we need to talk about. I think that, and what you brought this point up the other day, and I think that this might be the controversial thing, because we had talked this week about, let's bring up one thing that's very controversial, and this could potentially turn controversial depending on what you meant when you said that. But like, what does that mean? When you said that a couple weeks ago about accountability, do you remember what you were thinking when you said that?
Yeah.
And what were you thinking?
Like for me.
And we just keep it real here, no matter what.
For me, what I mean by that is, don't allow yourself to become a part of something that's not productive.
Okay.
Don't be involved in something that's not productive. Don't be doing stuff you shouldn't be doing. I mean, if a guy like me that come from Chicago can stay out of trouble, period.
In Chicago?
Yeah, because I knew better. And my parents expected more of me. Then, yeah, you don't limit yourself. I mean, we live in a country, in a society that gives you harsher penalties, longer sentences, all these issues stacked against us. So you have to take personal accountability. You got to tell yourself, hey, this is my goal I want to do in my life. I got to not do these things. I got to not be out doing nonsense and foolishness. I got to not do that stuff. And I got to stay focused and disciplined on what it is that I need to do so I can reach these goals I set for myself. And yeah, and I guess with a little bit of luck, all the things that I set out for myself, I actually, accomplished. And sure, that's by God's grace and some luck, but hey, if I can do it, anybody can. What kills me is when, and I hate to say it, a lot of brothers too that come from and they look just like me. Oh, white men this, white men that. Oh, they out to get you and all this other jazz. I don't believe in none of that. You want something, go get it. So what, you gotta work harder than your white friends. I'll never forget the conversation my dad told me when I was 12 or 13. I wanted to go do something. I wanted something to happen and it didn't work out for me or whatever. He told me, you black. You gotta work twice as hard. Period. That's just the way it is. You don't like it? Change it. But you're gonna have to work twice as hard. And luckily things went well for me. They have, but I had to work twice as hard. I mean, I just got my license. I studied 12 hours a day for 4 months straight. Who's willing to do that? I am.
Yeah, I think that you have a good point. I agree with you, and I think what the problem is, there's at least one thing that you said that kind of triggered in my mind.
Yes, sir.
Was from the perspective of how you grew up in Chicago and the personal decisions that you made as far as what you're going to do, and anyone should be able to do that.
Sure.
If you were able to do it, and so on. And quit making excuses for
None.
why you failed. And I agree with that. And I think part of the problem is, though, is there's a couple of things. Number one is that you're able, and schools don't teach us this, right? You're able to think for yourself, right?
Okay.
A lot of people are not able to think for themselves. They follow the crowd. They go with what people say. I see so much stupid stuff on Facebook and Instagram, different places where people are saying stuff and they have all hundreds of likes. And I'm like, this is idiotic what the person said. You following that? That's stupid.
Right.
But that's kind of where our people are. They follow the stupid stuff. They follow the things that don't make no sense, right? And because it's popular, because the person is popular, rather than really thinking for themselves, like you talk about, thinking for themselves to look at life and say, where I want to go. I don't care what way the crowds are going. This is what I want to do, right? And that's what we should think. And I think so. We got a lot of work to do from the perspective when you're talking about coming back. We got a lot of work to do in coming back to the communities. And as Brother Jason was talking about, going back and digging up, or I should say, reframing that subconscious mind, the way people subconsciously think. Because I used myself as an example, even though I didn't finish, because it was a personal decision that I didn't want a degree in college. I was going to college, and I remember when I went to go enroll, and my father took me. And he was showing me all the things that I can do and what careers I can go and all these different things and so on and so on. And when I looked at it, it just dawned on me. And I'll tell you, it just dawned on me, right? I think I was about 19 years old, something like it dawned on me right then and there, like, man, I can be whatever I want to be. Somebody lied to me. But somewhere deep down in my subconscious, I thought, like what you was talking, man, the white man's holding down, you can't do that, you'll never be enough, blah, blah, blah. And that stuff gets in you. When you hear it enough throughout your life, that stuff get enough. And even though you're not constantly saying it or constantly practicing it, in the sense of saying, I'm not going to do this because I can never get ahead because of the white man.
Sure.
But somewhere deep down, you living it out because it's in your subconscious mind. And I think that's the way it is with a lot of our people in different ways, have this train of thought that's in their mind, this condition, these learned behaviors that deep down in their subconscious mind that they have and they think about themselves and they don't understand. And it all begins being able to think for yourself and unlearn a lot of these different things. So we have a lot of work to go back to the community and teach these young folks, even old people like myself, 87 years old, and so on, to get out of that kind of mindset, right? Even when you talk about owning property and different things like that, I think Farrakhan said years and years ago, most people still have a slave mentality, right? And when you come out of slavery, when you look at all the things that Black people have dealt with, and there is a inequity, there is some challenges in overall in the community where people can't really not able to individually think for themselves, or don't have the knowledge of how to tap into the resources to pull themselves out of what they're trapped in as far as in these oppressive communities, right? Because you have the red line, there's so many different things that Black people went through to be discriminated against and oppressed and robbed of their property and different things like that. You can get in a hopeless situation if you're not constantly thinking through and just go with the flow and so on. And so I believe it's right. And on the individual level, one of the things I believe a lot of times, and I try to practice because I see it all the time, is like, you know what? Maybe I can't save the whole community, but there's a few people that maybe if I reach one and help them, that'll make a world of a difference, because it's a challenge to talk with people and to get people to understand that they following the wrong person or they're going the wrong way. But if you can just reach one person, I'm one person, and I think I talked about it before, is that when God saved me, the moment God saved me, my life turned around. I was a crook, robbing, stealing, violence, everything else. All like a thief, couldn't put one sentence together, and things like that. But when I got saved and God put me out of that, I never ever committed another violent act, never committed a crime again. Went back to school to learn how to do these things, to write and put sentences together, different things like that, to better myself for what I wanted to do, right? And so I believe that every individual can do that, just like you said, just like you being homeowners and things like that. Individuals can do that, but it's not embedded in our culture and in our way of thinking,
right.
And that's what we got to change.
And I think we got to change that now.
Yeah.
You want to say something?
Yeah, well, go ahead. I'll say that.
But again, with who held you accountable to do those things,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it takes a certain amount of discipline to hold oneself accountable.
Mhm.
Period. Like discipline literally means I'm not going to stop pursuing this goal that I set for myself,
Mhm.
no matter the distraction.
Mhm.
Period. Right?
Mhm.
I mean, and for me, and I always use myself as an example because it was drilled into me at a young age. Lead by example. You got to lead by example, right? So that means not doing a lot of stuff that becomes popular and all this other things because,
Yeah. That's right.
you lead by example and you mess up, that's what we're hoping that people say, told you so.
Mhm.
You ain't better than nobody else.
Mhm.
You thought you was better than us and all this other junk.
And you didn't think he was better than before.
Exactly. But I just had some lofty goals.
Exactly.
But the great thing about, wanting to, kind of become something is that you have to, like, once you set that goal, you can reverse engineer the path.
Mhm.
And then you have to tell yourself, I'm not going to do anything to, shoot myself in the foot, so to speak, like, going out and having a baby I can't take care of.
Thank you.
Or going out and buying something I can't afford. Or, I'm gonna go to school every day and study. I know it's hard for me to learn math, so I gotta apply so much more
Mhm.
attention into math. Go and get me a tutor,
Mhm.
pay her out my pocket if that's if that's what it takes, and all this other stuff.
Mhm.
I mean, when I was in college, I hung out with Jason almost every day, didn't I? I told my mom how many times he's probably the most productive friend I ever had. Why? Because it kept me
There
disciplined
you go. There you go.
and not doing stuff.
Accountability.
Absolutely, and I just limited my.
You know what?
Distractions.
Here's one of the other things, and don't forget what you're going to say too.
Yeah,
One
I'm
of the-
done.
No, but one of the things that I think is very important, and one of the things that I was very blessed to be able to do, and very thankful to be in the position that I was in, is be able to provide a space for Drew and to provide, and not resources, it wasn't really, but I became like his surrogate family. I mean, he had other homeboys and stuff for sure, but
Just
like
every holiday with your family.
yeah, like I mean, he had a place to like tap in, and there was an expectation. And if there's ever anything, and I to this day, I'll meet people and I'll be like, "Hey, dude, I've been telling him, I've been telling him he should have been in politics way back in the day." This is because he used to work he did political internships and he was applying for internships with politicians here. But I've always really believed in you ever since the beginning, and I always knew that you was going to be something great. And I got to see where he came from. I got to see his family dynamic. I got to see these things that had every excuse to not do well or whatever, and did well.
Yeah.
But what I think, and I don't know if this is what you're going to talk about, but I think that there's another expectation that we have to. Dr. Claude Anderson talked about 3 things that are needed in order to have a community, and the reason why we have neighborhoods, right? Communities have 3 things. One is they have political capital. One of the things communities come together, and all a community is where a group of people that come together for the same purpose. That's what a community is. That's it. You have a common unity. That's all the community is. It's people that are together for one purpose. So when you have a black community, that means you have black people that come together. But he said there's 3 things. One, you got to have political capital. You have to be able to say, as a community, this is what we expect from you. That's the quid pro quo that everybody does, and we need to learn to practice it. The other thing he talked about is we need to have financial capital. We need to have money. Communities have to be able to invest and reinvest, and the way that you do that is by having businesses and things like that. That they talk about the black dollar doesn't even stay in the community. As soon as somebody black gets paid, the money leaves the community. There's no way for the black dollar to circulate in the community. Where the Jewish dollar circulates 18 times, the Asian dollar same, white dollar 8 times, Hispanic dollar I think is 10 to 12 times or something like that. And the black neighborhoods is none. We don't circulate our money at all. And so, but the third thing, so it's political, financial, and the third thing is we have to have a code of conduct. He said, man, there's certain things that shouldn't be tolerated in our community. Man, if you do that, we don't want you in our community. Get out of here. If you're doing things that's detrimental to our community, you should get out of here. And he said it's tough for people to think about that kind of stuff, but it's true. If you are doing things in the community that's tearing the community down, we need you to get out of the community. We don't want anybody here that's going to ruin our community. So I think when I think about accountability in the black community, those are some of the things. And that means even from people who are our politicians that are from the community that's not doing the right thing. Anybody that's not doing the right thing, we need to get them out of our community. And until we can have that, we're always going to have people that are just going to be here, just doing whatever, causing all kinds of havoc and doing things in the community that aren't productive. But in order to address some of those things that are toxic in our community, we have to be able to rebuild psychologically. Like, man, the Black community's been under attack ever since Black people been in America. And we can't just be like, man, come on, y'all, now we want to change today. It don't work that way. We have to do some real repair. There needs to be some real mental repair that has to happen. And part of that is reparations. Part of that is helping to get on a level playing field. Part of that is providing, we have to provide ways for Black people that haven't developed those skills and developed that stuff, haven't looked towards hope. It's, you know what I mean? And so, yes, you're going to have pockets of people. You're going to have pockets of people that do really well. Yeah, like you did really well. You've done well. By grace of God, I've done well. You've done well. Yes. So people would look at us and go, look, but they don't see the other thousands that haven't and don't have a particular constitution that would allow them to do that. And that's where community comes in.
Yeah.
Yes, you want to do something great. So, and because you're a part of our community, we expect that. And when you start doing things contrary to what we expect in our community, we're going to put you out here. So I just wanted to say, that's one of the things that I thought about that, man. And what were you going to say, Chaz?
I think that they're real time answers. You kind of touched on my thoughts. You touched on it. It's not going to be today.
Wow. Show me on this.
I don't want to. Perhaps after we're done with the broadcast, I'll show you. Language matters. You spoke in regards to
and let's get some of your folks' comments too.
Yeah. What I think is one of the biggest injustices that was done to us was the allowance for some of us to make it. And it's like a myth that somehow we have different classes of Black folks.
Right.
We want to believe that we can exist like white folks.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest proof that we cannot are when you see people come from other countries. People come from war-torn countries with nothing. And again, I'm not saying that you're diminishing it. We don't have any choice. The way we act when we four sit here, we somehow separate ourselves from the other Black folks. And we can't act like that.
Right.
Now, I don't think you can change the psyches of people over a certain age. So this is something that would start with the youth. And even when you look at, okay, so we reach back and we have youth programs. Like there's all kind of ways we try to help kids in the quote unquote Black community. But it's always still preaching the only way out and promoting sports, right? It's always promotion of football. And there's still this either really tangible, conscious or subconscious, either sing your way out, dance your way out, or shoot basketball your way. And I have very specific notions that we need to start. Like you guys said, accountability is important, sure. But ultimately, some people, like you said, don't know how to think that way. And they just don't know how to think that way. Why you do, I don't know. Because you shouldn't. I don't know why you, one out of maybe 100,000, figured it out. But the other ones could think that way if you show them. And I think that if we deliberately start having programs that go in and we don't push sports. We don't push being a singer. We go back and we teach kids how to think. And if we act the way foreigners do, because I think they've shown us. For instance, your daughter comes back from college, gets a job. Your daughter, maybe she gets married. They stay in your house for 4 years with the one deliberate idea to save money and then to go out and purchase a home. But in America, white folks typically, because we kind of borrow, we co-opted white folks. Turn 18, you get out. You go start your home pot. Like you said, whether it's credit or finances, maybe we don't have the same amount. But if your daughter comes back, saves money for 4 years, then goes out, purchases a house, she does the same thing, you're doing the same thing. In 20, 30 years, we've now got more ownership. We've got what you were talking about. So we have to have a deliberate mission. And I think we start with the youth. It might take 50 years, 75 years.
But at least you got to start somewhere.
But you got to start somewhere. And just making excuses and giving us a pass, we don't get a pass.
That's right.
We don't get a pass, and we know it's possible because when I look at my parents' neighborhood, I see Asians living in houses that are being scooped up. And I see 12, 15 Hondas in front of that house. And that ain't Black people. Now, I guarantee you, if you were to watch, you're going to see different Hondas over the next 20 years. Because there are going to be people that are in that house that go out and get their own house.
Right.
And then somebody else comes from another part of town,
Right.
from Vietnam, or what have you.
I've seen that.
We're not doing that. We want to live like white folks. Hey, you ain't gonna be living in my house, and that's our biggest problem. We need to stop giving ourselves.
Well,
we need
I
to
got
be
my
accountable
yours.
because we're not accountable. Because
Yeah.
we think somehow that it's more important. We feel like we've made it to have a brand new car. Listen,
Mm-hmm.
my mama asked me years ago. I don't know what we're talking about, but she said something about. She compared me to one of the Indian immigrants.
What language did she say?
You stupid. You
Oh,
stupid.
his mama from Zimbabwe.
You stupid.
You
stupid. Zamundin.
Mama, yeah.
My mama asked me why wasn't I doing this good. See, y'all took a powerful moment.
Yeah, I know.
I thought you was regular black. You African?
Y'all took a powerful moment.
Lord Jesus, that's a fire.
Go ahead.
Y'all took a powerful moment. She asked me why wasn't I doing this good. You know, okay, I'm doing good.
Combat Alliance. I just want channel good.
Oh man.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, man. Sorry, man.
So,
It's all
take your hands down.
It's all good.
No, go ahead.
So your mom was jogging at Jordan's like.
In her flip flop.
Okay, come on, man. Stop playing. You play too much. Come on.
She asked me why I wasn't doing this good. That's my Indian friend.
Yeah.
Right? She asked me kind of roundabout, like, why am I not doing that? And I said, Mama, this kid comes from India. He had nothing. All he cares about is coming here and making it. He doesn't have to be cool. I couldn't hardly go to school. I had to be cool.
Right.
I didn't think about, am I wearing the right clothes?
Right.
And I'm at the psyche. And I'm saying, if we keep, and that's where we're not accountable because who bought me? Well, not my mom, but you know what I'm saying? When you're running out buying your kids and making your kids aesthetically viable, you're feeding in to the next generation of BS. So we're our worst enemy, not their politicians, not anybody else. We keep making excuses. And whatever book you're talking about, I'm sorry, but it's a bunch of excuses. We need to get on board with our.
So I my thing is in the it's not a book, it's a report. And what it's not doing, and don't get me wrong, I'm not making any excuses. Because I was telling somebody the other day, I've been on my job 20 years. Guess how many times I've been late?
0.
Now, what would you tell?
No, I'm just so
Because you hold yourself accountable.
You know,
Professionalism is important.
all I'm saying is I'm
How
not.
did you learn that?
His mama white.
That's a good one.
No,
That's a good one.
no.
His mama ran an underground thrift store for 40 years in the ghetto.
That's
An underground thrift store together.
They called her Nutmeg.
that's a bad.
No, but I don't know. Like, I mean, I didn't grow up rich. Like, when I lived in Arizona before I moved here, and I remember times legitimately eating the same thing every night for 2 weeks. We had neck bones, red beans, and rice every single night for 2 weeks, and we ate it even when the neck bones was gone, and it just was beans and rice. I didn't have a whole lot of money. I don't know. I just, for me, like, it just was never cool to like not go. Plus, part of it is I guess I like what I do. There's an expectation of my coworkers. Like I feel like I belong to my careers. There's multiple reasons why I wasn't late. There's nobody that sat me down and said, "Now don't let you ever be late to work." It's not.
You got that from somewhere. You must have got it from somewhere. And I think that's what we're talking
I'll
about.
tell you what it is. It's the manifestation of priorities. It's careers and priorities.
But let's go back before.
But also
Except before he was that, he was a barber. No, let's get deep. You was at the barbershop. Let's get real deep. You were at the barbershop every day. What's the number one
Except for
issue with
Sundays.
barbers? Barbers are constantly right or just not showing up.
Sure.
So my point, you was already this before you had this career, and that's my point. You don't represent. Perhaps you might be 1 out of 1,000. Now the other ones are capable, and I think it's our point or it's our responsibility to do what you said. You can't hold yourself accountable if you don't know how to. I would say it's probably your father. It's stuff that you were seeing that wasn't even conscious to you. Somebody else has to go in and be that for.
I don't know, but I'm just like, why would you be late? Like, it makes no sense. It makes no sense for
But
me
it
to
makes
be late.
perfect sense to others.
But see, I'm not like I don't even now. I mean, I've gotten worse in the last 2 years or whatever. But like, I was never late to anything. I'm like, man, my mentor used to tell me, if you're on time, you're late. So like my shift at work don't start till 8 o'clock in the morning. Well, we get to work at 6:50, 7 o'clock, by 7:20 or so. Like that was the rule at work. And so I just don't like to be late. I just never have. I don't like to be late anywhere. And that typically hasn't been my rule. And I've gotten bad over the last 2 years or whatever, just for various reasons. But for the most part, like anybody in my family will tell you, like, and so I did the same with my daughters. And I used to take my daughter to school a couple of years ago. The car was leaving at 6:40. At 6:40, I was backing out the driveway, whether you was ready or not, it didn't matter. But like, that's just a thing for me. Like, and so I don't know where it came from. Nobody sat me down and told me. Even when my mother had a janitorial business, and I would be on the bus at 5:15 in the morning or whatever, heading downtown to open up the public restroom on 3rd and C or whatever. And it was my daily routine. I did it every day.
Just these are the kind of things
I don't know
that
why
you
I
would
did
reach
it.
back and you would tell you, because there are other people that just don't know.
So
They don't value it and they don't know
Right,
the importance of it. And these are the kind of things, these little things that separate us from other folks.
but I guess one of the things that you see a trend in that industry, right? And you say to yourself, oh, I don't want to be unprofessional like these guys. Because when you were in barber school, I'm assuming you went to barber school,
Every day.
you saw how lazy people were with that trade. And he was like, nope, I'm going to be better than you.
I had more haircuts. I had the record of haircuts in my barber.
Why do you think that was?
Again, you're an
Because
anomaly.
I just believe in working on it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
did
work ethic.
1,500 hours and I had more haircuts than
But you're a statistical anomaly.
Right. So, but the thing now, imagine, right? How if you would have, let's just say you would have opened your own barbershop, then you would have had to handpick and choose people who you thought had the same work ethic and drive as you did.
You
Right.
have a small pool of
Let me say this.
So how good would that barbershop have been?
Let me say,
Yeah,
can I
Right.
when I think of what happened in my life, and I gotta say this because I think it's important. I think that it informs a lot of why I do what I do, and I just gotta say it because as I'm thinking, like, what was it? And the truth is, I became a Christian at 19 years old. When I was 19, I became a Christian. I stopped drinking when I was 15. I just celebrated 34 years of sobriety on January 9th.
Yeah.
I became a Christian at 19 years old. And I used to sit around the table with a bunch of older folks or whatever. We used to read a proverb a day. If anybody wants to start reading the Bible and I don't know where to start, just start in Proverbs because there's 31 Proverbs. And so you'll never get lost. You'll always know where to read. If you skip a day, today's the 20th, today's the 19th, read the 19th Proverb. And we were talking about this the other day, just the wisdom that's in the Proverbs. And I learned things that I began to practice as a Christian. I began to practice these things and I began to see the results. And I learned I learned like what happens when you're going through troubles and trials. I learned a philosophy. My theology was informing my psychology. My theology was informing the way that I processed information in my head. My theology was informing the way that I deal with society, sociology, the way I deal with people. And it dealt with my methodologies. I set up methods. I was never taught to sit around and wait for God to deliver a paycheck to my mailbox. I didn't grow up around Christians who said that. I grew up around Christians who said it's important to work. And if you don't work, you don't eat. So the Bible says. Some people are poor and it should be that way because if you don't want to go to work, then you don't deserve to eat. If you don't want to go, if you can't, for whatever reason, there's some people that can't. And I believe we have a fiduciary responsibility to care for the poor and people that don't have the, I understand that. But the reason why I do everything that I do, at least I try to, is because I believe God has commanded these things. And I was taught these things at 19 years old, really young in my life. I was young getting sober. So the times when I got sober, I used to hear old folks, they didn't want to hear me say nothing in the meetings. Why? Because they're like, boy, I done spilled more liquor and smoked more drugs than you ever have in your life. Okay, I was raised by older people. Like I would consider them to be like OGs, So I think, and I feel like I owe that to the conversation because as I think about my life and what helped me, it was my Christian belief. It was me learning good theology. At least I believe, and I developed it over time. The reason why I love the way that I love, the reason why I care about my friends the way I care, the connection that Bishop and I have is because of that. You know what I mean? Like that is what informs a lot of what I do is because of my Christian values and beliefs. That's why it's inappropriate for me to be late to work. That's ridiculous. It just makes no sense. And it's not like I'm a good Christian. I don't want to be late, but I do think that that's important. If I want good things to happen in my life, and I know that, and it's important for people to feel like they can depend on me, that they'll know that I'll be there. And so that's something that I try to work on the overcoming a lot. You know what I mean? So I just feel like it's important to say that I don't think it's magical. I think it's very spiritual, and I think there is a mysticism to it, right? I think God has done something to my psychology that allows me to do that. So I just wanted to add that.
So what do you say to those young men and women who don't place so much emphasis or merit on what God says? Then what?
Well,
You have to teach it.
Well, I mean,
You have to teach it.
You can still teach the principles on it, because one of the things I know a lot of times, people say, "Oh, well, I'm atheist, or
Sure.
I'm a non-believer,
Sure.
or whatever," but I have morals, and my thing is, where you think morals come from. So even when you talk
Loosely based on the Bible.
yeah,
What is it? What is it?
or right and wrong, and good and evil,
all of it loosely rooted in the Bible.
Right? No matter how you look at language.
Yeah.
It's all true. It's all true.
yeah.
For sure.
If somebody don't believe what I believe, it's like, that's fine. Like, it's okay. Like, it's not my job. My job is not to convert the world. That's God's job. I just do what I do, and I try to live my life and preach the gospel in a way that, like, literally preach the gospel to people, tell them about the gospel. But then I also try my hardest to try to live in a manner that, like, doesn't seem hypocritical. Like, I would imagine when people, if I die, I want people to be like, man, this dude really like love people and care.
Well, back to your code of conduct, though. To your code of conduct, my thing is like, I agree with that when you talk about code of conduct, but I think it's backwards. It's the best way I can put it. And what I mean by that is that the code of conduct that we believe that can uplift our community, empower our community, and bring more value to our community. As a lot of things we talk about here, it takes a code of conduct to do that. But when you start reaching younger people, when you start talking about a code of conduct, most of the time, if you start talking things where we're talking, they're going to kick you out of the community.
Of course.
Because it's backwards in our community.
Do we have our code of conduct would include no snitching? like if you had to come up with a black code of conduct, what would it be?
Well, let's say
I know, do we have?
You know what I'm saying?
but
No snitching.
Let's drill it.
Which
Drill.
I do agree.
Drill. But and I think we need to have conversations about that. Like, but drill into that a little bit though. What do you mean? Because I think that's
We don't have a code of conduct to win. We just have a victim code of conduct.
Or to be cool, say what you want, live how you want, do what you want, and without no accountability to it, right? And so that's why people can say what they want to say on social media, and if you can't come in and correct them, if you see them doing something, you try to correct them or what have you. It's like you're the bad guy. You're become the enemy versus them looking at, oh, you know what? That makes sense, man. Tell me more about that. I remember when I was in the streets of one of my homeboys, and he got parole a year, been gone for 20-some years, but he got out of prison, and he saw that me and some of my other homeboys, we weren't going in and out of prison, out of jail, and all that kind of stuff. And he said, man, what are you guys doing to stay out? He said, teach me how to stay out. Now in my mind, when he said, I said, stop doing stupid stuff. That's what was in my mind. I didn't tell him that, but that, if he said,
You know why you keep going back.
Show me how not to go real. Stop doing all the stupid stuff you're doing.
Right. And as callous and as kind of heartless as that sounds, that's the exact truth. Like, you really just gotta not engage in stuff that will get you, put in jail. Period. Right? I mean, but
to know how to do that, that's the whole point. To know how to do that is nuanced.
Right.
You know, Rob.
Right.
So people don't know in prison. For instance, people don't know. I work in prison. Worked there 14 years. Now I work in parole. I'm gonna tell you right now, guys come out of prison after being in prison for 10, 15 years, 20 years. They have to get a job as part of parole. They have to be at work at 8 o'clock in the morning. They get a job. They don't even know, but I'm certainly not disparaging. This is real. They don't know that to be at work at 8 o'clock doesn't mean you get up at 8 o'clock. This seems like a very simple concept, but if you've never had a job, if you've never had to be anywhere at a certain time, you have to ask them, well, how are you going to get to work by 8 o'clock? And it doesn't dawn on them, well, you have to get up and get ready, right? So they don't realize you might have to get up at 6:30 or 5:30 because you have to catch the bus. These are things people need to be taught. Okay. Where are you hanging out? Who are the people you're surrounded with? They don't realize the simplest things. So I totally get what he was talking about. You have to learn new practices because every practice in your life led you right back to where you
so many people know that
They're south.
We-
South. That's what I said.
That's okay. No, that's many people know. No, but
You guys have kept my secret very well.
Let me go put this kilo back in the trunk of my car.
But you know, one of the things, speaking of just, you know, I started a family called Homework, and it's a family of formerly incarcerated folks that have a felony conviction on their record that causes a barrier to employment. And one of the things that we endeavor to do is help them to get connected to union jobs. And one of the things that Drew, as a general contractor, was like, man, we want to increase his business so that we can get some of the folks from our family to be able to help him to build the legacy, to be able to change some of the things in our community dynamics in his family and other people's families.
Right.
So with that being said, that's part of what we talk about. And I think we have to, this is why I always say, like, one of the tough things about re-entering society, and there's some people who had never went to prison that still need to re-enter society because of
That's right.
some people would feel ostracized from the community and all kinds of other things from mental health issues and stuff like that. There's some people who struggle with depression. Some people that have been sexually abused and been beat, has been just traumatized in all different kinds of ways. They're afraid. They've been, it could be anything. I'm talking about being talked about in school. That we talked about each other, and that's all we did all day. And we said some of the harshest things, but it didn't affect us. But there's certain people that we would base on that we know we could tear them up and break them down. My whole point is that there are some people that are severely broken in our community. Yeah. One of the things that we talk about at Homework in our Friday Night Life Skills class, we talk about anything. What's the difference between a problem and a situation? And so one of the things we talk about is what happens if you got to be to work at 8 o'clock and your job is in Carlsbad and you go out to start your car at 6:30. You've done everything that you could do, and at 6:30 you go to start your car and it don't start.
People have no clue.
And so I think we have to stop taking for granted that people actually have that knowledge or whatever, that we actually have to build relationships with people. And that's one of the things that I really believe in, that we have to have relationships with folks. And we got folks at Homework right now. They got to be that leave their facility where they're at, and some of the halfway houses that they're at, they leave at 3:30 in the morning to get to work by 5:30 because they know they got to take public transportation. And they super responsible, whatever. That's what they do. Because one of the things we talk about all the time is we're going to put our name on you to get you into a union, but you have to be able to deal with some of these particular things, deal with your anger issues. You have to deal with some of these other things. And if you've been institutionalized, and some people have been institutionalized, haven't even been to the institution. Some people have an institutionalized mentality that are right here in the community or whatever. And so we have to talk about.
And you shouldn't feel sorry for somebody that has to get up 5 hours before.
No, of course not.
Because that person down the line,
of course not.
That's who fundamentally was going to build somebody that's going to be.
So I just wanted to say that there's multiple reasons why people don't know certain things, and I think we do our folks a disadvantage or a disservice when we think that they should just know how to do it.
But here's the thing.
Simply because I could.
Right, but let me give you another example when you talk about the code of conduct, right? They could be a person, a parent, that's doing some inappropriate stuff that's not a good example to their children, but they're in our community and involved in this movement and so on, but you see that what they're doing is inappropriate and not a good example. But if you go and approach them and tell them that, they're going to say, F you, get out of my face, blah, blah, blah. I'll do what I want to do, live how I want to live, you go live your life, and so on. And I think it goes back to what you said. If the community had a code of conduct, and they say, hey, our elder came to you, told you this is not the code of conduct of our community, you said that, then you got to get out of our community because we're not going to allow that. But as long as people are allowed to live, and as long as brothers are allowed to date 3 and 4 different women, get them all pregnant and different things like that, and we still praise them and treat them like their community heroes and things like that, we're going to continue to have a problem, right? As long as our sisters do not, and I've seen some educated women, young ladies, educated, got college degrees and the whole shebang, but still caught up and not knowing how to choose a man, right? A man that you're talking about here that has a code of conduct and has responsibility, know how to be responsible for himself and do the right thing. And they go find the worst one of the worst ones, one of the ones that can't even get themselves together yet and try to, hook up with that person. So we have this kind of like behavior that's happening in our community. And when you get back to the morals and things like that, talking about a code of conduct, where that it's not being corrected, it's being allowed, it become what we call the norm, and it shouldn't be.
But I think the other part, and I think I think we always have to remember that, and I think we should determine what's more the exception? I think what we make the exception is the successful people in the community. But I think that might be the rule. I think the exception might be the people that's not doing it.
So that's just accepted.
I don't know. And which way you
I don't know.
Everything he just said is super true on a local level, and ain't nobody stopped making albums with R. Kelly when we've been knew what he was.
No, but
So, I don't know what he was.
no. I'm not saying I'm not disagreeing with what you said.
Uh-huh.
I'm just saying
That's the most real thing that's been
no,
said here tonight.
no. What I'm saying though is that I think we I don't disagree with anything you just said. Nothing. But what it made me think about, and maybe I should have prefaced it like this, what I'm thinking about is do we spend more time thinking and talking about the folks that aren't doing the right thing and we spend more time focusing on that because that's what society wants us to do, because society knows us as losers and people who don't want to do well and failure to thrive and
We
stuff
sure
like
don't
that,
worry about
right?
society at large. We're not worried about society at large. We gonna self-govern. That's the point.
So I get it, but I'm saying, but what I'm saying is, what about the people that are doing very, very well in our community that we don't ever talk about?
But that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is
we
that
never say anything about the folks.
this opposite are the ones that's placed on this platform in the community as in a part of strong movements that are happening in the community where everybody's looking to. They're the ones that's placed on that platform. But you have these folks over here, like you said, that's doing the right thing. Blah, blah, nobody ain't really paying no attention to them. So that's what
we gotta start doing. We need to start doing.
We gotta. That's why I said it's backwards. Got to change. You know,
Yeah.
the way we
But you know,
conduct ourselves.
I think that's an issue in American society as a whole. But
True.
more importantly, it affects Black folks even more because it's just so much fewer of us. So
True.
our per capita, so the numbers always
I
get a
agree.
little worse
Right.
for Black folks. But the thing is like, and I'm seeing this so often, people want to, kind of get with the norm and kind of, keep up with the Joneses, and it's detrimental. It's literally counterproductive to, you're either going to be about what you say you're about, or you're lying to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
One of the two. And I think that, and I guess luckily for me, at a young age, I kind of figured out, what I wanted to do in my life. But more importantly, I was exposed to so much, I learned what I didn't want to do and what I didn't want to become.
Yeah.
And I think that positive reinforcement is just as effective as negative reinforcement,
Mm-hmm.
right? So,
How long did you? I mean, one of the things I love, it's one of the stories I love to hear about you that has always impressed me. You maintain the same vigor about life since I've known you. Everything that you do it 100%. But I remember you talking about you having to ride. You love football,
Yeah.
and you used to have to ride your bike. You know what I'm saying? Talking well, what? And just as
Okay.
a young man, having to ride your bike a long way to get where you need to go like that.
oh yeah. So
And how old were you and all that?
going into high school, I played Little League football, Harvey Colts champs.
That's right,
But
Harvey, Illinois.
that's right.
And suburb of Chicago.
That's right. 25 minutes south of downtown. But
He lived in the suburbs.
I did.
But
And they were
they were not the suburbs that we know.
no.
The suburb is a relative term. Trust me, it was not. That was not La Jolla.
People from the suburbs moved from the city.
Yeah.
What that tells you,
Anyway,
right?
so people say suburbs and people get the wrong idea.
So my backyard.
right, not my backyard.
You know what I'm saying?
So I had wanted to play football in high school, and where we lived was a ways away from the high school that I went to. And my dad, who worked, right, he was going to get me to and from, school. But I had to work with him first and do some stuff and then, get to practice. Well, I was late a couple of times to practice. And my dad was like, look, my job is to get you an education. Sports is something that you on your own with the sports. So if you really want to, play sports, you're going to have to figure out how you're going to get to and from that school if the bus don't run. Period. And my dad was kind of like, so that's on you. He was like, you got a bike, don't you? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, well, ride that bike to school. And it was literally an hour.
To ride.
It was an hour ride.
Wow.
To school. And I mean, as the crow flies, it was probably 10 miles. But the route that I had to take was over some hills and on the side of the overpass, like all this stuff. But I had to figure out how I was gonna get to and from school.
Mm-hmm.
But what that did is that instilled in me at 13 years old, if I want to do something bad enough, I'm gonna figure out how to make that happen. And so again, accountability was on me. Not to my dad's credit, I'd had a bike at the time, so he had like, you know, gone with me to go get like some new tires or whatever, make sure that I had the tools necessary to do what I needed to do.
Take
And
responsibility.
he encouraged me to, you know, you gonna ride your bike? And so one day he asked me, how long it take to get to school? And I was like, I don't know. Ride your bike there and then come back. And it was literally an hour ride door to door to my school. And I got to the point that I could make it to my school. And we're talking on a 20-inch BMX bike. Nothing great, no 10 speed, none of that. I could make it there in about 40 minutes. I mean, when I drove, it was a 15-minute drive. But when I rode my bike, it was about a 40, 45-minute ride. And
Had he given you a ride to school, you might not be sitting there. That's kind of what I'm saying. You
Perhaps.
know what I'm saying?
or I would have had to rely on someone else.
And your whole mentality. So when you talk about why are you who you are, you're seeing the point that I'm making.
Stuff like
You're
that.
seeing it's small in itself, but
Sure.
I think it's a real mishmash of stuff. Why you sit here today, and again, like you figured out. So that's what I think when you say accountability.
Yeah.
Some of you were taught accountability. Some people,
Yes.
it's our job as a community to
Thank
teach
you.
kids coming up accountability, to teach them these
I
small
agree.
things,
I
give them
agree.
these small
I agree.
stories.
I
Because
agree.
their parents, some parents would give them the ride, and I don't think it's anything wrong. But I don't want my baby. That's how we continue to be this.
Bro, I rode in the rain. I rode in the snow. Wrestling was a winter sport. My coach died 2 years ago, and he had specifically asked for me to come back and speak at his eulogy because he said that I was one of his best wrestlers that he had coached. He coached for years, 20 years or something like that. And as I was kind of going over some stuff, I remember, reflecting on, how influential he was. My sophomore year, he kicked me off the team because I was late to the bus to go on the tournament, and we lost the tournament, and I was a for sure win. But we needed the team points, and I lost. Well, I was late to school and missed the bus because my dad got me to school late. And it was snowing. And then I came home, I was, telling my dad, like, man, coach kicked me off the team. I was like, do that.
That's life,
My
man.
responsibility is your education.
Yeah.
He was damn about that wrestling. And he was like, so what you gonna do? I was like, well, he's like, well, you better hit them books and you got some good grades since you ain't wrestling. And I was like, wow, my pops was a savage.
While other fathers be up at the school yelling at the coach.
My dad was like, it's whatever.
Mhm.
He bought me a weight set. I gained 50 pounds. Undefeated my junior year. And I think I beat just about everybody my senior year too. You know what I'm saying? And I rode my bike to and from school no
So
matter
good
what.
shape.
Right.
But you gotta make sure you give mom's credit though, because she used to be your practice. You used to wrestle with her.
Dude, I can tell you one story. We had a weight set downstairs. I'd be in there lifting weights with my shirt off. My mom would come back there with a broom, open the, they'd be like, who is, and I'd be over here like, you know what I'm saying? Midnight, was doing curls. And I'd be like, and she'd be like, boy, if you don't get your musty ass. Boy, my mom was terrible. Bro, everything was a road session. She was like, man, I thought somebody was back there. You might have to open the back door because it was hot in there. She thought we was there getting robbed. They might be stealing wash dryer and dryer. Haven't seen it looking great. Yeah, my mom was crazy, but yeah, we did that, man. And, but what it did is it gave me just another reason to be successful. It gave me another reason to just, when I get my opportunity, I'm gonna kill everybody.
So let me just ask this then, because we talk about this, and I don't know so maybe we kind of looked at the problem, I guess. You know what I mean? We kind of identified. I think we all agree fundamentally. I mean, where it counts. I think probably some of the nuances we may not, but where it stands, we all agree that there's an issue, there's a solution, there's so forth and so on. What would you all think is like and maybe we're at an hour and 40 minutes almost, so we can kind of begin to wind down. I think we start talking about the mayor's address. It's gonna that's a long. He told so many lies that it would take us 4 hours. We should have probably started with that, but maybe just let's finish off with what are some solutions and some practical things that we could do, or that are being done. We don't necessarily have, or that are being done. We could do or being done in San Diego or whatever to help with the problem of accountability and making sure that the younger generation understands. How do we begin to work on it?
Model ourselves after groups that are doing what they're doing that have probably just as few resources as we do. They're not white. They're not loved by whites, but they decided, again, coming from where they're coming from with nothing to lose, they decided to win. We are so worried about looking good, having nothing to looking good, that we're not doing that. Stop being so, so non-judgmental. Be harder on ourselves. Stop being so easy on ourselves, and be more like this father and say, I don't care. If you want it, get it. That kind of parenting builds winners, period. The other kind of parenting builds dependent people. We got a bunch of dependent people.
Well, so okay, and can I just push back? What about, so you do that, and your son doesn't have the same kind of constitution? I don't think it's just a matter of, because I know dudes whose parents was doctors and they ended up gang members. They gang banged and their parents was doctors, and they believed in going to college, and their parents' expectation was that you go to school. So I guess,
but that's not what I said though.
yeah. But
Without the other stuff. Now, given what he just said, you can go off to college, but if you don't fundamentally at your core have those kind of attributes, then what you gonna do, especially being black?
But I'm saying, if Drew's dad would have been like, well, I'm not taking you. If you want to wrestle, and you say, okay, well, I ain't gonna wrestle,
maybe he didn't go to college. Maybe he wouldn't have gone to college. But whatever he did, he would have had a different resolve.
But see, I don't know if that. But okay, I mean, I just don't know.
Because what are we talking about? We're talking about being a professional. Who knows? He might have started his own business.
But everybody doesn't have the. Well, my dad's not going to take me, so I'm going to make it happen for myself. Everybody doesn't have that. Some kids don't have the same constitution. I think that there's something fundamentally, and I was thinking about this a week or two ago. Like, is there something in the DNA? Like, why have you been in a career? Why are you a homeowner? And why do you, like you kind
because I got the same kind of thing he did, and as a community, that's the point I'm making. And that he was saying, we collectively, and it's not that difficult, we collectively start making decisions opposite of what we're making now as a community. If you're not getting it from your parents, that's fine, because not every parents are fundamentally equipped with that. Again, with these youth programs that exist, and then some that would be to follow. You teach these things. Now, I don't know exactly what it would look like, but like you do at homework, these things can be taught in a systematic way to the youth, to the ones coming up, and then down the line, people would have different kind of resolve, a stronger resolve. And I don't care what they're doing. I don't care if they become plumbers. I don't care if they become preachers. I don't care if they go to college and become doctors. If you're a doctor even, and your resolve is low, your potential to produce a child that has that same kind of resolve. We're talking about like fundamentally changing how we think in the black community. That's what I think we're talking about. Fundamentally changing the way we think, no matter what you do, no matter whether you're a millionaire singer or running touchdowns. Because I find it funny how, and we talked about it, I find it funny how somehow Jay-Z, like you said, becomes this pillar of our community. Why? Because he's rich. Because he can rap.
Mm-hmm.
A guy runs touchdowns, and we want to ask him what he thinks about politics. Just because he runs touchdowns and is rich, and maybe he's even articulate, doesn't mean that he has the same kind of resolve that Drew has. That's what I'm saying. Like you said, we need to turn around this really warped idea of what resolve is.
The reason why that is a thing is because in America, capitalist society, we place merit and credibility with people who have managed to make a lot of money, because we associate status with that. Right? Case in point, Donald Trump's a billionaire. Hillary Clinton's a career politician. Donald Trump became president. He could run a Chick-fil-A. He's not qualified to run an Applebee's, but he has status. Right?
Right.
We associate money with status. And with status comes, credibility and trust and merit. We automatically assign that. Obviously, this guy must want to talk about why, because he's rich. Period.
And we do that in our community.
We do.
Big time.
We do. But I saw a show that had the former owner of BET, Oprah, and I found this absolutely amazing that this show,
Johnson.
Yeah, this show went so unnoticed. She said, well, she's worth billions.
Mm-hmm.
She said, when she gets in certain arenas, she feels just like we do. No matter how many billions she has, she suffers the same racism, prejudice that we do when she gets in certain circles. So no, if
Why do
that
you
is
think
a
that
lot,
is?
because it doesn't matter how much money you have. You look like this. Bill Cosby, OJ. At some point, you're going to be told, you're going to be shown, reminded who you are.
For sure.
So
So
if that is a notion, I think that's
so maybe try to so I guess so summarize just like a solution point, and let's just go around and do that because we only got 15 minutes. Summarize. You kind of said it again, but just summarize your solution point. We'll pick this up. Next time. We'll work on a way to try to get you. We're doing our iPhone. We'll figure something.
but fundamentally changing that again, making it clear with the youth, making clear with our future that what you think is a win is not a win, right? Getting a new car and looking fresh, that's not a win. Looking a little bit beyond yourself, looking to your kids, and kind of like again the other races do, modeling ourselves after them and seeing that this is a platform that works and that we're so Americanized, but we're not really
And started locally in our own homes is what you're saying.
correct. We're not really Americans the way that we want to be. I guess we fancy ourselves to be, but we're not. Because when you think of American outside of America, they don't think anybody the same.
What do you think, Bishop?
I think, and one of the things I would encourage those that haven't heard it to hear. My oldest son, gave it to me because I was quoting Napoleon Hill, and he sent me Napoleon Hill. Another one, Interview with the Devil, and it's powerful. And one of the things that in an interview that of course he claims the interview with the devil is really just trying to get us to understand some things, is that he said he controlled 98% of the minds of people. So that's not just black people, that's black everyone. And it goes back to what you said, because we're so few, it impacts us way more.
Right.
But 98% of the people he controlled. And he said he controls them because they don't know how to think for themselves. And he said, and the two institutions that he pointed out that helps him to keep people in control was the schools and churches, keep people in ignorance rather than serve them, right? And let me just give you an example of some of the things that he said here. Number one, people don't have a definiteness of purpose, right? Choose a purpose, a grand aspiration, a big goal, and move towards it relentlessly. Most time people just drifting through life. Our young people, when we're talking about, that's all they do is drift through life, and whatever comes up, that's what I'll go with. So you're controlled by society, you're controlled by what the teachers want you to think, you're controlled by what the pastor and the preachers and the churches want you to think, versus you being able to get out of the box and think for yourself. And so people don't have that. So we got to do that. They have to learn from adversity, the failures in life, learn how to get back up and keep moving on. Learn from them and don't let them stop you. Controlling your environment of influence, which who you hang out with matters. What your room looks like matters, right? Time can make drifting and negativity permanent. And so, but it can also make positivity and wisdom permanent. So a lot of times what ends up happening is with our people, we're just drifting through life. We don't have no purpose, definiteness of purpose, right? And so therefore, one of the things I always say in the church is that everybody's fighting for your commitment, right? Your time, your resources, whether it's that soccer team, whether it's your job, whether it's the church, whether it's a community organization, everybody's fighting for your commitment. And most of the time we helping somebody else reach their goals rather than having a definite purpose of what my goal, what I want to do. So I have this thing written on my, I think I've shared this before, on my board that says only do those things to move you closer to your goals. And so, because a lot of times what we end up doing, we end up losing focus. We want to help other people, want to get involved in certain things, but you have to know who you are. And I think a lot of times people don't know who they are. They don't understand their purpose, why God brought them, put them here on earth, and what is their purpose and how they should serve their purpose. But the main point is that most people are controlled, and I believe that's a reality too, controlled by the devil, and he wants us to go to self-drug. He'll let you succeed in money and all these other type of things, but he play upon our fears, right? Fears or whatever you may be afraid of. We play upon that, and so we have a clear purpose in mind, clear goals, and just one more thing, clear goals of mine. And the other thing is, which I like, is that have caution, always act, but always think before you act. Because a lot of times we get angry, get upset, we see someone on TV, different out on the street protesting, different things like that, and we don't consciously think things through, right? All the time, and we see that all the time. So 3 things we must master and have self-control over is food, sex, and money. And those things always are driving force that cause us to drift through life. And so if we don't show discipline, and I think that's part of the problem, self-control is showing some discipline in our lives or what have you. You might be good in a certain area, but what about your overall life and what you're doing? And so you got to have some self-control in what you do. And so we got to teach our people this. They got to start understanding, that 98.5% of what you do is controlled by your subconscious. And a lot of that stuff in your subconscious came from childhood, came from the stuff you watched on TV, what your teacher taught you in school, what your parents, what you seen them do, heard them do, and so on, people you're hanging out with. All that is, throughout the years. And sometimes you're not even consciously aware of it. That's how Hitler was able to brainwash people, in Germany, get all these folks to rally behind him, and he become a dictator, right? Because they controlled the media, they controlled the radios and the newspapers and everything else. And so all they was hearing, so and that's what's happening to us, right? And that's the thing, like when you go all the way back to slavery, when black folks come out, I think that's one point you're trying to bring up, is that it's a mindset. It's a mindset that we've been placed in, some been able to break out of, some been exposed to certain people, certain things that's been able to help them to break out of. But a lot of people are just trapped in that, right? And think a certain way, and it's unfortunate, but some kind of way we got to find a way to break through that and reach those people, get our people to understand. And so that's why I'm always challenging different things, even when it comes to our politicians. So for people that we love, I don't care who you are. I'm looking at principle. I'm acting on principle. So I can love you, but if you, at least from my perspective, if you're not doing right now, I'm not going to give you cover. People say, oh, that's our ally. Well, I don't care who they are. I've been jerked around too many times, and screwed around too many times and lied to and misled and so on to just allow this to go on, right? Politicians, even white ones you support, and they talk all the stuff, then when they get in office, they ignore you until you embarrass them. Then they blowing up your phone and everything else, right? Trying to call you and like, why you? But then when you really want them to do something in the community, they completely ignore you. When you talk about police brutality, and hey, I need y'all to speak out on this. Let's get some positive. Where are they, right? And so we hurt ourselves many times in how we do things in the community. And I'll shut up and use this and shut up. Is like Shirley Weber, right? Shirley Weber has been like a champion in the community when it comes to police brutality, changing laws there, dealing with the school system, all these different things for black people. And she specifically let you know, she has a black agenda, and this is what I'm doing, and so on. So she went to the Capitol and just sprayed the wall black, right, with black issues. But then when there was an issue going on in National City with Earl McNeil and so on, and that was really Lorena's district, people were like trying to call her out, like, where's Shirley Weber? I'm like, well, wait a minute, this woman been fighting for. This is not her district. That's how we hurt each other. That's how we get so personally caught up in our stuff. We don't look and see and understand who our real allies are. And then you got all these white folks over here that we give them a pass to. So on one end, I think that, we don't stick together when we should. But then on the other end, because like what you were saying, as far as, a person being black should be in there, sometimes we give people passes that we shouldn't be giving passes to. We should be holding them accountable. And so we got to get that practice, and we got to really start moving people to understand that and get out of that flawed way of thinking.
What do you think, Phil?
Well, just like in terms of like what we discussed today.
Just get your final thoughts on accountability, a solution, and provide a solution to.
Okay, I guess number one thing is like me, I'm a huge fan of personal accountability. Why? I mean, just own it. Just own your stuff. Like if you want to do or become something with your life, figure out what it is, right? Reverse engineer a path to get there. Surround yourself with the right people, right? Have the discipline to not engage in stuff that's counterproductive to what you want to do. And then just pursue that relentlessly. Period. So what? Your social life suffers for a while. So what? Just figure out what it is you want to do and then just go after it. I think that, we get bombarded every day with a whole bunch of distractions, right? Discipline is the ability
Oh,
to stay the course, no matter what's going on, right? I mean, just every day. I mean, I heard something say that, you know, there are 1,000 commercials that we hear every day, right? I mean, just constantly being bombarded. Why? Because they know, the psychologists know, with repetition, certain things actually, you know, make its way in there. So what you have to do is you have to, and again, hold yourself personally accountable for what it is that you want to do. And then, and if things don't go right, don't blame nobody else.
Right.
Blame yourself. Because I don't know how many times, like, you know, and this is the luxury of being black, right? There's this expectation for you to fall short. So, you know, if things don't go right. Black folk, you know, it's just hard for a black man out there. You know, white man don't want you to do this. And I tell people all the time, there was never no white man that stood outside my door and told me you can't become what you want to become. Period. As a matter of fact, all the things that I've ever wanted to do, and I shared it with my friends, and a lot of my friends are white, they encourage all of it. Young, old, doesn't matter. They encourage all of it. Period. Because you surround yourself with the right people, with the productive energy, right? It's an energy thing. With that positive energy, you know, I mean, just like you. If I'd met you at 22 years old and you wouldn't have been the positive influence on me at 22 at a critical time in my life, right? Transition, you just got the military, I'm born, all of these other things. Who knows? You could have convinced me to start doing meth, and now I'm over here living under the bridge in La Mesa somewhere, tweaking. But I didn't, right? So I think it's just really up to us, and I think that we got to hold our leadership accountable. That's right. And if we don't hold them accountable, again, blame ourselves, but also change leadership. That's right. And then it's okay to groom leaders. It's okay to find people that we like, that we want, and groom them to be good leaders. Because I think that the real, you know, function or virtue of a leader is to A, give direction, and B, offer hope and inspire people. That's for sure. Period. And if we don't have that, then we need to make that happen. Because, I mean, we're what? 6 generations out of slavery now?
It's not a lot.
It's not a lot. That's 2 80-year-old people back to back. That's not a lot. So, and you know, but and I'm gonna end it right there. I think that, you know, the great thing about accountability is just take ownership for what you're doing. And you know, we talk about a community. If one person does it, whole households does it, whole blocks, whole communities, before you know it, it just becomes something in society. But the people that, you know, it just needs to kind of develop a momentum, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, the ability to just kind of, you know, think for yourself and just know that you don't know everything.
Right.
So other people, their perspective is just as valid as yours.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't got to try to, you know, one up other. You know, you just got to stick to your guns and stay in your lane. Which sometimes you got to tell folks that, you know, staying in your lane should be an Olympic sport. I ain't lying.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. No, that's
Amen.
well. So
that's it.
well,
Amen. Good. That's very good.
you know, for me, man, like I just everything that I think what was said tonight was really, really cool, man. Tom just said too, man, some good advice being shared every night. Tom, my brother Drew is the contractor I was telling you about. I want to connect you to. Tom Lemon is the guy I was telling you from the building trades.
Right on, Tom.
That you need to meet, but so that's one of the things for me that I love to do, and I think that that's something that's important. That when we recognize people that are actually doing the work and doing what's well, I like to connect those folks with people. I am a connector. I love building relationships with people, and so like I'm like, hey, I know that you're doing well, so it's easy for me to like help to provide whatever it is to you. It's easy for me to walk with you because you're doing the work or whatever. It's easy for me to roll with you because you're doing what you're supposed to do. Simple for me to kick with you, because you do like these relationships right here are easy. Right. And so you know, I just want to say I appreciate y'all for doing the work, for doing what you're supposed to do, for making it easy. And my hope and my prayer is for some of the youngsters to be able to see, and that each one of us would take it upon ourselves to see somebody young that even if they're teetering, right? Because there's always these programs for the really, really bad kids that's gonna kill everybody, and then there's the really, really good kids that's scared, you know, that ain't doing nothing. but the
In
kids that are
between,
kind of teetering,
yeah.
maybe don't have. So I would like to try to look for some of those folks that, and just keep our eye open. And then I feel like for me, one of the things is to help build the folks that are doing the right thing and to give them the resources so that we can become more resourceful. Because the more resources you have, the more of an asset you are to the community.
Sure.
And the more folks, the more experiences that you have, the more opportunities you have to fail, that you can walk other people through that or whatever, and people can see you doing it. So I just want to say, man, what an incredible conversation, and I thank you all for being here. Appreciate you coming from Arizona to be here. Bishop, as I always say, man, I love being around you, man. I love
being
the
around you.
opportunity, the opportunity
Likewise.
to spend time with you, man. You are definitely a role model, somebody to look up to, and I appreciate what you stand for. I appreciate what you stand for, Brother Drew. Thanks for coming by here. We'll see you more probably because you don't live here forever. But what an incredible conversation, man.
Yeah.
You two have absolutely changed the dynamic of what we have here. And one of the last thing I'll say, and let's get off here, is there's been some folks that have said, hey, I'm going to be on the show. And I'm like, you know what? I think that's another way for us to, and who are we, right? I mean, 20 people probably watch the show, but I'm just like, but if we can provide space for other people to talk about what they're doing,
Right.
to get, even if it's a platform of 20 people, it's 20 more people that would have never saw it before or whatever. So we want to bring other people on
Right.
to have an opportunity to be able to talk about the things that they're doing or whatever. So, man, if nobody told you they love you today, I love you. I appreciate y'all.
Love you too.
Those
Love
of
all
you
of you.
who stayed tonight to watch with us or whatever, we want to
Thank
say
you.
thank you. Those who will be here afterwards, thank you so much. And we're about to sign out.
Are we even going to talk about the state of the city?
Not tonight. It's too late because we're 2 hours.
So,
Next week, but it's over now. So, all right, sorry. Hey, y'all. We'll see y'all later. Peace out.
YouTube, Facebook.
You too. Don't cuss because we're still on Facebook.